Hello, I'm Riley, and this is the Diegetic Advancement Podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Diegetic Advancement. As always, I'm Riley, and today I've got a call from Joe, which I'll respond to, and then we're going to jump into at least character creation, probably a few rooms, perhaps 6 turns worth of 6 turns down under. Well, let's not wait. Take it away, Joe.
Yo, Riley, just got finished listening to your latest episode where you're going in a little more depth about whether or not Tomb of Horrors would be a good entry adventure for a new group of players. I really, really enjoyed your thoughts, but I wanted to bring up something. You talked about how you wanted to maybe tone down the deadliness and replace some of the save or die traps with like save or go blind or save or paralysis. And I was just thinking, like, well, what's the difference between paralysis and death, right? Both of them give you a character that you can no longer use. And same with blindness. Like, that character basically becomes not very useful. And yeah, like, I'm wondering, like, do you, like, when a character dies in Tomb of Horror, do you just say, okay, you're done playing now, or do you somehow try and work in a new player character? I don't know. That's one of the things that I was thinking about. I mean, with a big group like that, I guess it's probably not that big of a deal. But yeah, I don't know. So those are my thoughts on if Tomb of Horrors would make a good entry level dungeon. There's a lot of good points that you and Daniel Norton have both brought up on why it would make a good entry level dungeon. But then, you got to change so much of it in a sense. Like what you were saying, toning it down and, maybe adding some different kind of encounters and adding different clues and foreshadowing and stuff to traps and stuff. You got to change a decent amount. And then at that case, is it still Tomb of Horrors? That's the question, right? But I really enjoyed what you said about how it gave you a whole new kind of perspective on running a dungeon. Because, yeah, I've never run or played Tomb of Horrors. I've never read it either. I've just seen a couple actual plays of it and then heard a billion people talk about it. And I can see that, it's not a combat dungeon. It's a puzzle dungeon. And I do enjoy puzzles and traps and stuff. So yeah, I should definitely give it a read. But awesome stuff, dude. Take it easy. Peace out.
Hey, thanks so much for the call, Joe. It's a great point on blindness and paralysis. I should have mentioned I would intend for them to be temporary, or I think you made me think about it a little bit more, but you could paralyze an arm, right? So you either lose a weapon or a torch hand or a shield arm, right? It'd still be temporary, because yeah, if they're permanent, you might as well just kill the character with those effects. As to what I do with dead characters, I'd just give them another pre-gen or roll up another character. We'll have them run 2 characters. I'm not terribly interested in running it like a tournament and saying, well, you're dead, see you later. People have either rocked up at a convention to play for the 4 hours. I don't want to kick them out after 20 minutes. Or if I'm playing with friends in a regular group, we've going to get together for 2 hours or 3 hours and play. So I'm definitely not going to kick them out. So death isn't like that big of an issue, but the reason I prefer some other effect to death, at least early on in the dungeon, is I feel like if I kill them straight away, it's going to feel a bit silly and perhaps gonzo and like it just doesn't matter anymore. And so they might just choose to kill characters to get through the game. Yeah. With paralysis or something similar, I can give them a bad effect as a teaching moment, right? They trigger something, they should have been a little bit more careful, they get some negative effect. Okay, well now your character's okay after a while, be more careful next time, right? And when they do get to the save or dies or similar traps in the middle and towards the end, hopefully they're prepared to overcome them. I think if I was on whether changing things, on what to change, I think if I was better at running these old school dungeons, might not need to add the clues into the actual module, I'd probably just be able to come up with these things on the fly. Maybe, probably not. It's one of those interesting things with the older modules. Secret doors are often not indicated as to how they're opened or how they function at all. Sometimes they are, but I wonder if the DM was expected to come up with these clues, or the players were just meant to find them by luck, or I think a lot of them do end up being at the end of dead end hallways, which is kind of the giveaway. But at some point, it does stop being Tomb of Horrors, I suppose, and I think that's okay, because it's definitely not designed as a beginner dungeon. So you don't want to run Tomb of Horrors as Tomb of Horrors if you're going to run it in this fashion. But yeah, it's probably better to run something else. But as you mentioned, I think the lessons learnt from running this dungeon or from studying it do make for a good experience. So that you could carry that on into whatever you do run. If you do end up running Tomb of Horrors or playing in it, I hope it's as much fun as I had with it. Thank you so much for your thoughts and for calling in and sharing them. Joe is the host of the Hindsightless podcast. Fantastic show. I'll leave the link, as always, in the show notes. Okay, so let's get into some dungeon delving. This time I'm going to roll up some characters and actually take them through the procedure of moving through the dungeon, checking contents of rooms, and maybe getting into some combat, either from monsters in a room or wandering encounters, things like that. I've used the OD&D Reverie Tools. It's a great little website for creating, for randomly generating characters and a bunch of other things. And I've created myself a party of 6. I have 2 fighters, the veteran Arg, the brash, fairly unremarkable stats. Mikavon, the indolent, again, fairly unremarkable stats. A dwarf veteran, Stacy, the trembling. Stacy's an odd dwarf name, but I have the apprentice thief, Dan, the quarreler. The acolyte, Octave, the prideful. And my magic user, the medium, Peter Census, the iron hair. And yet literally no one has a remarkable score, but my magic user did roll sleep, so that is fantastic to go along with his 1 hit point. Okay, as always, we will start with our 30 by 30 square room, and we're going to start heading north. Okay, the party approaches the northern door, the 3 fighters ahead of the group, the dwarf slightly leading those 3, the thief close behind, and the magic user, and then the cleric at the rear. They don't bother listening. They kick the door open, and a 10-foot corridor that then branches left, which continues for 30 feet into the darkness. The corridor continues an additional 10 feet north before branching left again. That continues 10 feet, branches right, and the corridor continues north and then turns left. They follow it north around the bend, 10-foot corridor heading to the west, which then turns south, looking up to the that previous branch. They loop back around and follow the corridor west, which enters into a chamber. The wall goes 20 foot to the south, 20 foot to the north, and it is 30 foot wide. There are 3 exits, one on the western wall at 20 feet, and 2 on the southern wall at 10 and 30 feet. The room is empty, though they will spend a turn here searching, and they find some treasure. 400 silver pieces, 50 gold pieces, and 2 gems worth 500 gold each, hidden behind a loose brick in the wall. Not a bad first room result. That takes us to turn 2. I need to roll for random encounters. Not getting any, so they continue on. The party continues west out of the western corridor from this chamber, heads 10 feet and then branches north. They come to the intersection and look both ways. The western portion extends 30 feet with a door on the southern wall at 30 feet, and the northern also extends 30 feet into darkness with a door on the eastern wall at 30 feet. They decide to head north. Stopping at that door, they look down the corridor to the north, which continues another 30 feet. There are 2 doors on the east and west walls at the 20 feet mark. They decide to stop and listen at this eastern door, this first eastern door. Hearing nothing, they open the door and enter a room. Wall extends 10 foot to the north and to the south, and it is 20 foot wide or deep. There is an exit on the northern wall at 20 feet, and the room is empty. They take a turn here to search the room, especially on that wall that matches where they found the treasure in the previous chamber, and they find some more. Again, getting very lucky on the 1 in 6 treasure in an empty room, but can't complain. This time, 300 silver pieces and 30 gold. That is the end of turn 4. Rolling for wandering monsters, I don't get any. The party decides to open the door on the northern wall, and it opens up into a corridor that immediately is a dead end. 10-foot section and dead end. This is fairly suspicious, so they check for secret doors and do not find any. That takes a turn, takes us to turn 5, and turn 6, wandering monster, check, no encounter there, and they have to rest, and that's the end of our 6 turns. As we can see, when we add a dungeon exploration, with things actually taking turns, it is much quicker than actually just moving 120 through a dungeon. I almost had to work out a procedure there for secret doors. I don't have an ability to generate them, though there might be obvious ones where corridors sort of butt into previously explored rooms and things like that. It kind of makes sense. In this case, I failed the check to find them, so I don't have to worry about it, but it's something to flag for a later date. Thoughts on that? Well, we got very lucky with treasure. Not anything terribly. Well, the 500 gold gems are pretty good. 1000 XP plus a little bit extra for the coins. But not having to fight anything and just exploring 2 rooms and a little bit of corridor is pretty good. Of course, they do have to get back out with it to earn it. But it was fun, smooth. I'll have to keep playing more and encounter some creatures and a couple of more traps and things like that to begin to work out the kinks. But thank you very much for listening. That's where I'm going to leave you for this week. As always, details for things I've talked about in the show will be in the show notes. That's Joe. Thanks very much for the call. The OD&D referee tools and the tables that I'm using, as well as the sketched map for today's episode. Thank you very much for listening, and bye for now. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can reach me via Spotify, SpeakPipe, Discord, or email. Those details, along with everything I've talked about today, are in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.